Okay, I think we're live. Let me turn on my head to make sure. Yep, peace. Turn off my head. I wanted to do something a little different and kind of share some writing. But the different part about this will be when it reads, it might sound a lot like me. I think it does. But it's not me reading the story. It's a AI voice clone. I'm not sure what they called it. It said on their page that they could instantly clone your voice. And I think I just read something from some old writing trying to avoid the same words. And it did it in about 5 minutes. And since then, I've had it read back a bunch of different things. And it does mispronounce stuff. But I still think that's kind of cool that it can do that. Should be scared of that? Maybe. I don't know. So what this is from that it is going to read is chapter 4 in the book that I've got out there in a couple places called Taropian Songs, where I'm trying to go through each of the card images that I created for a tarot deck and see what comes to me as a story. So far, we're 4 or 5 chapters in, and it's kind of revolving around 2 characters, a lady called Juniper and a man called Bjorn, kind of a Viking guy. But I haven't really defined the time period yet, so that's a little vague. But anyway, you'll see behind here on the screen that this is the book that's kind of hidden behind a paywall kind of thing, but not much of a paywall. And we'll go down through here and we'll go to the most recent story, which is called, it's for the Emperor card. It's called Bjorn's Bombast because he's a very vocal kind of guy. And that's the image for that particular card. Not that there's any relationship between the story and the tarot card other than what I saw in the image. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start that recording and be quiet. I think it's about 5.5 minutes. Of course, you don't have to listen to all that. But, so here we go.
Taropian Songs. Chapter 4. Bjorn's Bombast. Bjorn's trip across Eurasia with his motley crew of flamethrowers, tarot readers, drunken roadies, and pretty women out for an adventure was fun, but not as fun as his trip to the Falls Castle. At first it was just another romp with a woman-child, that independent, self-assured one, yet in some ways mousy, with green eyes and flaming hair. After the conquest he was sated and ready to take leave. Still, for reasons he did not understand or conjure, his thoughts kept backtracking to her, the way she moved, her porcelain face, and her enigmatic smile that he could not stop dreaming about. What was her call? Her magic? Her control over him? He had tried to forget her, overwrite her in his mind with drink, trapeze artists, and perhaps the young girl Giselle who followed him around, offering her love for little in return. Alas, behavior such as Giselle's made her less appealing to him, as if she was screaming, "Take me now! Where's the conquest in that?" For him, romance was war, with lust being the same thing. His monkey within had war written all over it. His monkey needed the struggle and the precarious climb to reach the fruit. Easy fruit on the ground, no way. He would have to be desperate to be satisfied. These monkey thoughts came from a storyteller who once traveled with his troupe, who often spoke about how evolution had left some monkey deep inside us all. On the other hand, Giselle's sister Taifa had caught his eye and his ear. His ear was caught by Taifa's offer to write his story. She promised to transcribe the story of Bjorn in his words into a journal, which might someday become a book. She did not want to be a freeloader living off her sister's abilities. She wanted to earn her way in the troupe. Giselle and Tifa had only been with the troupe for a few months. While her sister Giselle was athletic and an exhibitionist, Taifa was more learned and into learning more. Tifa had taught herself to read and write by mimicking and self-determination. Taifa admired her sister, but did not want to be like her, especially not how men treated Giselle. Every man, that is. Bjorn stated that Typha would live with him from now on, just so she could get a true idea of what Bjorn was all about. He wanted an authentic portrayal of himself. "The whole me and nothing but the me," he stated. She gathered her meager belongings and set up home around a small cot in his tent. She was 14, a bit scared as he was a big, harsh man, but she was eager to learn and start writing about him and the thoughts he would share with her. She had to become his shadow. She would watch his conquests, bashing and brawling and drunken stupors. No matter what he did, she had to write it down, as well as read it back to him when he asked. She agreed her choices in life were slim, but she did wonder if she could really do all he was asking of her. As the troop entered Israel, and he smelled the sweet air of heavy fruit and rich spices, he finally thought what was behind him would stay in the past, to slowly be forgotten. But instead he had to think of the present. Too many were counting on him. On the outskirts of Jerusalem, the town held its weekly large open-air market. The sun shone brightly, illuminating the bustle of men in turbans and brightly scarved women who smiled and laughed shyly, with gangs of little ones giggling raucously and screaming with glee. It was a beautiful sight, in many ways sweeter than the local baklava. First, the troupe would perform outside the tents they had set up near the market. Then, on the last day of their stay in Jerusalem, they planned a day's trip to Masada if their patrons had been generous enough. Masada was a famous fortress with spectacular views of the Dead Sea. Bjorn had always been keen on visiting Masada to see the remaining Roman camps and siege setup. However, he was interested in something other than the story of the rebels and their sad ending atop Masada. Bjorn was only interested in the mechanics of the conquest. To him, the end result was definitely a conquest by the Romans. He would never surrender to anyone for any reason. Up we go. He ordered everyone to follow him up the steep hike of the Snake Trail to the top plateau area. Everyone stared out at the panoramic views. Bjorn had stomped right up to the edge on all sides. He was touched by the place's barren, bleak, stark appearance. He could imagine trekking on some misadventure and coming upon the Dead Sea after struggling through a barren desert to be greeted by an undrinkable sea of water time wasted and worse off than you were when you started. Upon their return to camp, Bjorn ordered Typha to listen carefully and write his words into a letter to be sent to Juniper. Typha was instructed to use the special vellum paper for the final copy, make a handmade envelope, and tie a red ribbon around it. She stayed up all night writing and editing by candlelight. In the morning she read the letter to Bjorn. He approved and ordered her to post it immediately. To herself, she thought that the letter should never be sent.
Okay. I think it's done reading it. I kind of lost the ability to hear it, so I'm not sure I scrolled the screen so well. But I still think this voice cloning thing is interesting. And I could see it, obviously for audiobooks, it'd be great if you can find a nice someone who's theatrical, I suppose, with their voice and is able to do different voices maybe. But maybe you can have multiple voices. This thing says you can have multiple emotions of yourself. Meaning I could read something where I'm extremely happy or something where I'm extremely sad. But they don't really go into exactly how you would match that up with what you've written. Maybe there's some sort of keyword or some way. I'm not sure. But it's not perfect. But I think that's pretty good from what I've heard. And I've tried most all of them. If you're interested, I can provide a link to the place. But I'm not going to just put it in there. Because I think they're still in a beta, so they got a ways to go. All of them have a ways to go, to be quite honest. And in this case, I think my clone read a little too quickly, maybe. But that's common with these things. They read too fast. There needs to be better control over their pacing. Maybe that's what you would call it. So maybe this has gone on for too long, but I just wanted to share the story and me, but not me, kind of reading it. So with that, I'll come back here, and this time I'll put my head over this goat over here. With that, I will say peace. And peace again, because it takes 2 clicks to end this thing. And bye for now.